This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Do you see that? Do you see this? Perhaps most importantly, would you get a load of that? That's right, friends. The autumn season has finally befallen us. Do you see what I did there? That means it's finally socially acceptable for fall girlies everywhere to start purchasing gratuitous amounts of pumpkins, wearing entirely too many layers for the current state of the weather, and of course doing lines of pumpkin spice off of their new Hello Fall welcome mats. So there have been several other installments of plagiarizing nature already on the channel. I made a leaf dress a couple of years ago. That was beautiful. We've done a pine tree dress. Oh, I'm forgetting how many of these I've made. Oh goodness. I'm actually forgetting how many of these I've done. And then last summer, I made a summer leaf corset. But unless you count the Halloween costume that I made last year, which was kind of like glorified, like Halloween threw up all over it armor, I have yet to make a bona fide autumn leaf corset, which is actually a little bit surprising to me. So this week I would love to give a crisp and refreshing embrace to fall by remaking a version of my summer leaf corset, but make it autumn. Make all the leaves look just a little bit more dead.
So because I love to make a full look whenever I make corsets, I started by building a little Pinterest board of similar fall and leaf inspired items to give me some ideas of what I wanted to do with this piece. Next, I whipped up a little sketch on my iPad for the general design, and I decided I wanted to go for an underbust corset belt with a few central leaves on the front, removable harness straps, skirt hikes with little decorative leaves on them, a matching pair of bracers, and finally a gorget to tie everything together. I know this is a lot of stuff, but you can pry maximalism out of my cold dead hands.
So in the past, my method for making these corsets and costume pieces with plagiarized nature on them has very much been just to take a wood burning tool to some EVA foam and like go to town. Typically I would back that in some canvas just to reinforce it a little bit, which works well enough, but at the end of the day it's not really going to be the highest quality product. As satisfied as I am with these pieces, they still very much feel like a costume piece and not as much like a wearable, durable piece of clothing. So what I have clearly done this week is your girl has been to the leather store. I thought that I would take this video and merge it with a theme that has been persisting on my channel throughout this entire year, trying new things for the first time, and actually see if I can try to make this leaf corset thing out of leather for the first time ever. I've never done this before. I really kind of don't know what I'm doing. But luckily for me, I have vast reservoirs of unearned confidence, so I think that this is gonna go great.
Before we get too deep into this, do you also have niche artistic creations that are begging to be displayed to potential clients and art enjoyers? Well, with this video sponsor Squarespace, you can build a fully customizable website or portfolio in just about an hour. You can begin with one of their flexible website templates that are tailored to a variety of artistic and entrepreneurial niches, and from there you can tweak the colors, text, website media, and even pages to suit your personal branding. If your goal is to create a portfolio like mine was, you can upload your initial gallery with a click of a button, and updating your gallery is just as simple with tools like automatic image scaling that always keep your pieces looking appealing and organized. And thanks to their drag and drop website builder, Fluid Engine, you can easily add media like photos and videos to your site, and even create custom portfolios that highlight individual projects like I did for this fake werewolf video game I recently made. Another pillar of Squarespace's features is their extensive e-commerce platform. Here they offer virtually every tool you would need to sell your products if you manufacture them yourself, like purchase analytics, shipping labels, and flexible payment options like credit cards, Apple Pay, and PayPal, and even buy now and pay later services like Afterpay and ClearPay. But if you are on the busier side like I am, you can use a print-on-demand service through Squarespace's custom merch, and they'll handle inventory, shipping, and production for you. So if you want to show off your creations in your own personal gallery or begin selling your wares, you can head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, you can head to squarespace.com/PricklyAlpaca to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks to Squarespace as always for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to it. So the first step of this process is of course going to be to get this thing mocked up and get it fitting right on my body so that I know it works before I cut into my expensive leather. Are you guys proud of me? Now I'm going to try to work smarter and not harder with this whole corset situation because I have some patterns that could already potentially work pretty well for this. So I'm gonna do my usual nonsense of kind of Frankensteining those pieces together to try to make something that looks like my design here. So this is gonna be more of an underbust waist belt in terms of cut, so I think for the main corset part I can use... Where are you? Me losing my patterns. What else is new? I left my patterns on top of my 3D printer.
Why would I possibly do that? What I'm thinking I might do is use the Rose Cafe bodice as a base and then build on top of it and modify it from there. And then I also already have some of these leaf cutouts that I used to pattern my armor from last year, and I'm thinking this is probably about the right size and shape for the center few leaves that I want to have on this corset. So from there, kind of use this as a base to get my general size and measurements, and then I can layer a couple of these leaves sort of on top to give it that like decorative element. I can also sort of use this as a base for the bracers that I want to do, but I am going to need to alter the pattern of this because the shape's not quite right, but the scale I think is at least a good starting point. I already have this shape cut out too, so I'm thinking these for the little detail on the skirt height. And then for as many times as I've made some kind of like collar bolero piece, I have not managed to keep any of my patterns for that. I don't know where they go. Hey, Kira! Why don't you keep any of your patterns? It's ridiculous. So I think I am gonna have to pattern out another one of those. It's fine. I'll try to keep this one. So now that I have patterning all squared away, before I start cutting out these pieces, I do want to do a couple of practice cuts because I actually have never cut leather before. One of the tutorials I consulted basically said that it's good practice to just get a feel for it and do some boring little cuts whenever you're first starting out. That way you kind of know what to expect and how much pressure to apply. So I'm going to try to do that without wasting too much leather. Also, I'm sorry about this. I know this is making some of you very nervous right now. Okay, here we go. Baby's first leather cut. All of you are bearing witness. Okay, that was not as clean as I wanted it to be. It's okay. There we go. Not too bad. I actually expected to have to apply more pressure than that. I can't wait for this to dull almost immediately and for that to get super annoying. Foam smithers, you guys know what I'm saying. Okay. I'm gathering some data. So in the interest of not wasting so much leather, I think I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting the actual corset. Large, bulky pieces with mostly straight edges, so it shouldn't be like too crazy precise for my first few cuts. This is some gripping leather cutting content. I hope this is not too painfully boring for you guys.
Montage.
Process took all of yesterday and some of this morning, and I can confirm not my favorite part of leatherworking so far. I have a bit of a blister developing on my index finger here from gripping the blade so tight because apparently my hands are weak and I just can't push down that hard. It's a little embarrassing. I like to think of myself as a decently strong lady. This, however, kicked my can, read me to filth, put me to shame. I have been humbled. So I'm super excited to get into the carving and tooling process because that's kind of my main motivation behind wanting to learn how to leatherwork. I just want to like carve pretty stuff into leather because the work that I see people do is absolutely mesmerizing. But unfortunately, before I get into that, there's a lot more boring work to do because next I need to go in and clean up all of the edges. I need to sand a lot of them because a lot of my cuts were, let's just say rustic. And then I also need to go in with edge beveler and round everything out, and then finally burnish all of the edges. I'm probably not gonna go too crazy on burnishing and cleaning up the edges because this is my first build out of leather and I know that it's not going to be perfect. I kind of just want to get some experience. I'm also impatient and I want to get to the tooling process, but I am going to at least make an effort so that the leather workers in my comments don't yell at me too much. Let's do it. After sanding down the rough edges on every single one of the pieces, and then also using my beveler to round them out and clean them up a little bit, I then dampened each edge I was working on a little bit and proceeded to dive into the burnishing process, which is essentially a process where you use a lot of friction to polish down the edges until you get a really smooth finish. This can be enhanced with products like beeswax or some other polishes, but I just used water for mine and it ended up fine. It's fine. Okay, so we got sanding and burnishing done, and it's not the cleanest or most thorough job possible, but you know what, it's something, it'll do the trick, because whenever it comes to like all these little slots in the leaves, I just can only be bothered so much. This is fine. I want to see what you think of leather. Have you ever smelled leather before? What do you think? Indifference? That's all? This one has an interesting smell to it. See? Wow. I really thought that this might actually spark her interest. Can you acknowledge my effort to present you with new and interesting things? Look, it's leather. Oh, okay, we got a face rub. That's more than we usually get. Thank you for acknowledging me. Next step of the process is the entire reason why I wanted to do this week. Listen, I don't know why, but I just am in the mood to carve things into leather right now. I can't say why I'm in the mood for it. I've never done it before, so it's not like I would know what that experience is like, but something in me right now can tell that as a creative, it's just something that I need to do. It's a compulsion, if you will, and one that I am going to feed into. I am nothing if not self-indulgent with the content that I make. Also, I have all but defaced this cutting mat with my little bevel tool. Look at the carnage of this. Not so self-healing anymore. So whenever it comes to engraving the leather, I'm not gonna go like too crazy detailed since this is my first leather tooling project. Basically, my inspiration is little elfy fairy projects like this. I feel like this is the general vibe that we're going for. Nothing too crazy, but still detailed enough for me to like get this out of my system this week. So I think I'm gonna start out with one of the smaller leaves as to not completely overwhelm myself with this process, and also to try to like figure out a couple of different techniques on. I don't care as much about these leaves as I do, for example, these leaves. I wanna get a general grasp of what I'm doing before I go into that. And I've watched approximately maybe 2 tutorials about how to do this, so my very rudimentary understanding of that is to dampen your leather. Is this too much? Is this not enough? I wouldn't know. I've watched 2 tutorials. I think this tool is what I'm gonna use for some of the lines. Okay, so we're just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna carve a line down the center. There, it's done. Is this what you're supposed to do? I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here to have a good time, man. See, now that line could have been a little bit better. Anything that looks bad, I'm just gonna say it was a choice, and it's rustic. Leaves are supposed to look like kind of messed up anyways. That's the other reason why I thought this would have been like a good practice project. Because like if I mess it up, no I didn't. Does nature mess up its leaves? See, I knew this was gonna be a meditative experience. I'm already having so much fun. Should I do some little guys going off the sides like this? We're just drawing on leather right now. I like that. I think that's neat. Am I supposed to be dampening it this much? I don't know. Don't ask me. I've watched 2 tutorials. What do you guys think? It needs more detail. My weakness as an artist is not knowing when to stop, or is it my strength? You tell me. Let's consult the texts. See what leaves look like. Wow. I have a rubber mallet. So I like the direction this is going in, but I think I'm gonna try to do like a little bit of tooling detail. What items do we have to choose from? So these are the little fellas that I have. We have this could be good for texture. Hold on, this is a beauty channel now. An obvious joke. This is an interesting shape. This feels like Christmas morning, honestly. Ooh, who is she? I feel like that could add some interesting texture. I haven't even like looked at all of these. Oh, see, that one's nice too. Okay, we have our contenders. All right, I'm gonna wet the design again. No idea if I'm supposed to keep doing this, but my intuition says yes. Also, I apologize in advance for just how much this camera is going to move as I do this. It'll just be like a little ride for you guys. Ooh. I don't know how much I like this, which is not great considering that I am doing this into my final design. I should have done a test piece. I should have done a test piece. It's fine. You know, sometimes you just have to commit to your decisions. In the words of John Wick, consequences. So now that everyone's clicked away from the video, what do you guys think of this? I don't know, it doesn't look like a leaf. Maybe we try some of this? The use of the word try in that sentence concerns me just a little bit. All right, I see you. That's not bad. Maybe I could like blend them into each other. Oh yeah. I feel like very Winry Rockbell right now. That's her name, right? Am I saying it wrong? You guys even see this? Is my camera focusing? One of the things that I'm realizing now, despite enjoying how this looks, is that if I do this exact same stamp on the bigger pieces, this is going to take my entire life. I also don't know how I'm gonna cut this part of the video because this is like some of the most boring content I've ever produced. So this is the design that I settled on for the two leaves that are on the skirt hikes. I really like how the beveling detail turned out. I feel like it adds a lot of dimension. So I think essentially what I'm gonna do for these larger leaf pieces is kind of the same thing, but bigger. And I might add like a little bit more detail if it looks like it's gonna look good. So I'm gonna try to work on these and not ruin the leather leaf pieces that I spent like half an hour per leaf cutting out. Really don't feel like doing that again. Let's do it.
The tooling process a little bit better, I basically began each piece by carving the lines for the veins on the leaves, and then I used some of the backgrounder pieces that were included in my kit to add shading around the veins and add texture to the leaves. The process I used isn't all that different from how I would go about doing shading on a leaf if I was illustrating it, so it actually ended up going pretty smoothly, although doing the leaf details on the little skirt hike pieces, the 3 leaves that are going onto the corset, and the 2 bracers did take me like a day and a half. All the other pieces just ended up getting an offset line around the edges because I couldn't be bothered with anything else. Okay, so I finally finished tooling all of my leather pieces. That took an eternity, but it was worth it. I think they came out looking super good, and it was really, really satisfying. I had honestly a ton of fun with this, and the most fun, obviously, on my leaf pieces. Look at that. That's honestly a lot more detailed than I thought I was going to be able to achieve with my first, like, leather build. So I'm pretty happy about that. Obviously, there's some, like, little flaws and errors. Overall, really not bad. I think it's coming together well so far. So the next order of business, get back up there, is going to be to dye dye and then dry brush this leather. Get it to be the color that I want it to be. For this video, I went all the way down to the leather store, literally drove an hour away to get a couple of items, but I was confused and I didn't know what I wanted. So the method I'm gonna use to color this is basically gonna be to use a like brown stain as the base. This is the leather dye that I got. And then once I have a base of this down, I got some acrylic leather paints, just some nice little fall colors here. I think these colors should work pretty well for me. And then finally, to go on top of all of that, I have a little protective leather finish. So the order of operations for this is gonna be a little bit tricky because these need to all kind of attach together so that I can shade in between and like layer everything properly. But these pieces need to be dyed individually first. So rivets and grommets and stuff, it's gonna be a little weird. It's fine, we'll figure it out. So at the leather store, I was told that it can be helpful to dampen your leather before you start applying the leather dye. So I'm gonna give that a shot here and see how it does. It just is apparently supposed to give you like more control over the process and over how much dye you're applying. I don't need this to get too dark. I'm gonna get some of my dye and I'm gonna see what happens. That's actually a beautiful color so far. I will say the absorption so far is kind of interesting with it being dampened first. Doesn't have to be perfect though. That's why I chose Autumn Leaves, because they're so, you know, subjective. It is a little bit tricky to get inside of these grooves though. Let's give this little fella a shot. See if I can actually get into some of these detailed areas. There we go. Get some of these edges. I quite like the look of a much darker edge. That's nice. So first round of dyeing I think went pretty well. There are a couple of places in here, like here and here and here, where I don't know if it's just still wet from me adding so much water or if it genuinely absorbed like way too much dye, because that especially is very dark. I don't know. I'm just gonna give it some time to dry to see if I need to like do a little bit more to blend it in. Also, she is being such a cute distraction today. Look at that. Also, sorry if the audio is weird. My mic jack is broken on this camera. Awesome stuff. But the next step is going to be to go in and start dry brushing with my little leather paint here. But before I do that, I do want to attach some of the pieces together just to make sure they fit right and I don't have to do any changes there. I particularly want to get the leaves attached onto this main corset because I'm not gonna go dry brush in areas that are gonna be covered up by leaves. There's just no reason to do that. I considered saddle stitching along these lines, but I'm feeling a little lazy, so I think I am just going to do grommets and lacing to attach the individual pieces of the corset. So I need to go punch some holes in this.
That, of course, means it's grommet time! Which, as all of you know, is my least favorite part of any project like this. It's just such a pain. It takes forever. I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing me complain about it, but it's really the only thing that gets me through the process. In lieu of saddle stitching, which I'm realizing at this point probably would have been easier and not taken as long, I decided to add grommets to every edge of the corset to connect them together. This required punching 5 holes in every edge, which is a process that takes even longer whenever you're dealing with leather. I also opted to connect the individual pieces
pieces of the gorget together with grommets, which meant I did the exact same thing again there. Eventually I was able to do a little lace-up test of the corset and it fit well enough, so then I went on to marking the places where the leaves were gonna go and proceeded to do the hole punching, riveting song and dance all over again to attach those leaves. I also riveted together my little skirt hikes. I installed the buckles for my harness straps. And I also went back and made a bunch of tiny little buckles off camera so that I could use them as fastenings on the bracers. Those got installed with a couple of rivets. And then I could finally lace everything up and do a couple of try-on tests. And then I finally used a little bit of wax thread to sew some clasps onto the front of my gorget. And then that was finally it. Everything finally fit and had fastenings installed, and I didn't have to deal with this anymore.
What are you doing? Hold on, look at what she's doing. You know you're not supposed to be up there.
There are other ways to get my attention besides knocking my items off of my shelf. Look at this. This is not how I raised you. Okay. Ground. Come on. There we go. Off of my shelf. Off of my shelf. You know, it's rainy, there's tropical storms outside, and I can't play outside, so I'm gonna make it everyone else's problem. Yeah. I'm gonna throw a tantrum by knocking things off of the shelf. I know your games. You think if I knock enough things off of this shelf, it'll stop raining. Flawless feline logic.
So I've already been experimenting with my leather paints and the whole dry brushing process by practicing on my little skirt hike leaves, and I think it's going pretty well so far. I generally like the colors and the results that I'm getting, and the other nice thing is that it's not taking way too long to do this. I have also been mixing in just a little bit of my standard acrylic with this to get some like brighter pigment, because the pigment that I selected is like very kind of natural green. I believe the shade is avocado. It's not as vibrant, but that's okay. People at the leather store told me that I could paint on leather with normal acrylics as long as I sealed it afterwards, so it should be fine. I'm just gonna go in now and mess around and find out, because I really don't know what the look I want is until I kind of get in there. So in my design, these are a little bit green and a little bit orange. So I think that's still the general direction that I want to go in, but I'm not exactly sure what kind of blend or gradient I want yet. I do still mostly want this to read as like a fall leaf set, so I don't want to lean too much into the green spectrum, but I do want a little bit. I do really like the way the stain came out on a lot of these pieces, or I guess dye is the correct word to use. So I don't want to like completely overwhelm that. I still want that to be like at the base of all the pieces, but I want some color in there as well. I don't think that the leaf design is going to like read very well unless I actually get some color in here. I really like how the lighter colors show up on here. I think the base just complements it well, so that is one reason why I'm trying to like mix in some of the other stuff. I feel like that looks pretty cool so far. Gotta beat the devil out of it and make sure that I don't have too much on my brush. Fun fact, if there's too much paint on your brush, that could be an indicator that the devil is inside of it. Just wanted to warn you all. Okay, what do you think? How's that as kind of like a starting point? It's like a little bit subtle, but still very clearly like it's a leaf. So now I just have to repeat all of this on all of the other pieces. Oh boy!
After a quick protective acrylic finish to seal up my leather, this set is done and it's time for the reveal.
outside. Hello, and welcome to the end of the video. You see what I put up with? For you, you should feel very special right now. As a quick little wrap up, I absolutely loved this project. I always knew that I would really enjoy leatherworking, and it's another one of those things where I'm just like, why haven't I done it yet? Making this was so much fun. I'm very satisfied with the end result. I honestly didn't expect for it to turn out as well as it did. Like, especially the tooling process, I knew would be really enjoyable, but I expected it to be a lot harder than it was. And like, I get it, this is beginner, novice work. I'm very aware of that, but like, it wasn't overly difficult to kind of get the general effect that I was going for, even though I have like a ton of room for improvement. Also, like, the dyeing process and the painting process were not nearly as painful or difficult as I expected. It turned out looking pretty good. Like, if I had one critique, I maybe could have added like a little bit more vibrancy and saturation to some of the paint job. Like, my design definitely has a little bit more of like a red on the center leaf and more of a green that like pops out a little bit. But I also don't mind the subtlety because it is frankly something that my work is not known for. It's nice to change it up a little bit once in a while. The hardest part of this was definitely just like cutting everything out. Hated that. Hey, leatherworkers, in the comments, what do you do about that? How do you not like ruin your hands and ruin your leather and have like super rough edges? My fingers are kind of torn up right now. I got cuts all over my thumb. I mean, that's totally my fault, but also... Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are here for like fall, autumn, Halloween content now, because you know me. I'm gonna go in. You wanna be there for those. You should like and subscribe. I'm just saying, you could miss something that's really cool. And why would you put yourself through that? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my little inaugural fall video. I hope you enjoyed watching me try something new again. I've been having so much fun with this. Thank you so much for watching till the end of the video. And as always, the biggest thank you for this video and all of my videos, and especially the ones that are a little expensive like this one, goes to my patrons and especially my executive producers. Speaking of which, this one is still very mad that it's raining outside, so I'm gonna go and comfort her. Bye!
A huge thank you goes to my executive producers, including Marita Wasner, Very Smelly, Stabby Horse, Vicky Art 16, Ariana Trenta, Ink Moon Arts, Ember Creeps, Jaden Cypher, Cardia X, Christina Kentia Art, Call Me Ash, Blaze Ravenscar, Lunira, Mads Arts, Mossy Raven, An Apple a Day Keeps the Doctor Away if you throw hard enough, I'm not saying that name on the internet, ABW Makes, Sarah, Hopes and Crafts, Icecavan, Awendu, Liana, Ermler Jean, Anubix, Breeza, Sony, Brian, Phoenix, Rose Draconi, Freedom and Gus Gus, Kat, Dodo, Zyle S, Agent.Sketchy, Thea Maia, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, Enozine, India Gloom, Hypnos, Katie, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, I Hang Out with Cats at Parties, and Bean the Bread.
Tiger is like agreeing with me in the background. I say something, she goes meow. Meow.